Bigfoot territory.
Hmm.
But still, still at dusk, you're walking in it, walking in the dark before sunrise and stuff like that. It still is in the back of your mind for sure. But as hunting the Adirondacks goes, or the Catskills goes, I'm definitely on much more high alert than I used to be. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I could imagine.
I'm definitely ready to click the safety off a little quicker than I probably used to be.
Sure, sure. I can't blame you. And as hunting season approaches, it's like, do I really want to be recording these episodes right now and get these thoughts in my
Yeah,
brain?
no,
But
for sure.
here I
Opening
am.
days in a week.
Yeah. Bow season starts Mondays up here, so it's close. It's coming up. So you mentioned the Catskills. So I know that you, along with I believe it was your dad, and then some other people you were hunting with, had quite an interesting, um, you know, not visual encounter, but something is there with you encounter. Why don't you take us through that story? So this is in the Catskills.
Yep. Yeah. So that one was would have been 3 years earlier. So my encounter happened in 2015. That was in 2012. At the time, I think I was 16 years old then. I guess something like 16. And that one was pretty interesting. So again, a very large wilderness area, very, 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 very remote. This was actually a site where my brother killed the massive black bear. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm a year off. 2012 was when he killed the bear. 2013 was when the encounter was. So that time, we were pretty much every year we would go there. It was an upstate lake house cabin that my entire extended family would stay at every single Thanksgiving for years and years and years. At least a dozen years we went up there. We would go Easter, Thanksgiving. Totally familiar with the woods up there, hunting, trapping all the time. Tons of beavers we trapped up there, otters, all different things. And so every year we would do a deer drive. It was usually myself, my brother, my dad, two of my uncles, and a cousin or two. And we would do a deer drive onto this large riverbank. And we would pretty much stay on the, if you were looking upstream, we would stay to the left of the river. The right side of the river was all, uncharted, untrekkable, remote wilderness. You couldn't go there. It was just thick, thick black spruces that you had no visibility, and it was almost impossible to walk through. So no one ever went there. We would stay on the left side of the river and do a deer drive, down this mountain, through this large marsh, and onto the riverbank. And so this particular year was now the following year, following the year my brother shot the big bear, which he shot on the right side of the river after it crossed. And to get it out of its spot, it took 6 guys, 7 hours just to move this thing about 3/4 of a mile down, downstream. That's how large it was. So it is extremely remote and very inaccessible. And so we're pushing down now, pushing down the mountain, doing this deer drive. My brother is up on the bank ahead. One of my uncles is up on the bank ahead. And I start walking a little faster because I wanted to shoot the deer. I was 16 years old. I was like, I want to shoot something. So I start going a little bit ahead of the group, and I get into the marsh that's before the riverbank. And now this is a large, swampy marsh. If you don't have 18-inch boots, you're going to be swamped out right away. So, you're walking in the water about a foot of, 10 inches, a foot of water constantly. And these cattails now are probably 8 to 9, maybe even 10 feet tall. Very, very, very low visibility. I mean, you can't even see a couple feet in front of your gun barrel. And so I'm walking through the marsh now, and I'm first to go. And I start hearing some splashes around me. I hear a splash here, splash there, and it definitely was drawing my attention. And as I keep continuing through the marsh now, it seems like these splashes are getting louder and closer to the point where I think I'm having something thrown at me into the marsh, because, I know about beavers slapping their tails for territorial things like that. Again, I've trapped beavers my whole life. They slap their tail once and they basically jet back to their beaver lodge, or, get out of there. It's a territorial thing. This was not that, because it's continuing to get closer to me and louder. And so I start getting a little nervous at this point. It does enter my mind that this kind of sounds like, or seems like, rock throwing behavior, maybe from a Sasquatch. So I was like, this is pretty interesting. I actually unshouldered my rifle. I remember walking with my thumb on the safety, ready to click it off, because I was like, I have no visibility here. If something comes up on me, it's going to be too late. And so I start walking faster. And at this point, I'm almost like starting to jog through the marsh until I break through and I'm on the open rock riverbank. And I finally catch my breath, and I meet up with my brother and my one uncle there. And I said, guys, like, holy crap, you wouldn't believe what just happened. I think something was throwing rocks at me. And now we're talking about it for a minute or two, and the rest of the hunting party then, which was behind me but closer to the river, meets up with us. There's like 6 or 7 of us standing on the riverbank now. And I'm telling all my family about what just happened. I said I was walking through the marsh, it sounded like this, that, the other thing. And they're all kind of saying, you're full of crap. They've seen finding Bigfoot and stuff before. They were laughing at me and thought it was BS. That's until from the other side of the river, again, just like the first encounter when Christian and I were talking about the wood knock, and then it happens right after. It was the same scenario. I'm telling him about the rock throwing, and before our eyes, from the other side now, the right side of the river, where it is the inaccessible part, a football-sized rock comes launching out of the spruces and lands in the river. I mean, right on the bank, right next to us, 10 feet away. And we all turn. And again, we're standing in a circle. So, everyone can see each other. No one's playing any tricks. And we all turn and say, holy shit, like, did that really just happen? We're looking at each other and, like, just in absolute awe. Meanwhile, I'm in the back saying, see, I told you guys. And then, immediately as we're saying, did that really just happen? 10 seconds later, another, again, football-sized rock comes launching out of the woods, out of the thick spruces, where an impenetrable wall of spruces, and you just see this gray football-sized rock launch out of the spruces and land right in front of us in the river. And at that point, we all grab our rifles off our shoulders, and we're like, dude, holy crap, like, this is real. And that's a Bigfoot throwing rocks at us. Because it's not a person throwing rocks at 7 dudes with guns in their hands. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So we are just absolutely in awe. And it was, that was just another extreme encounter that I believe I had with a Bigfoot. And again, people may think, how likely is it to have, a Bigfoot encounter, let alone 2 or 3 encounters? But you have to understand how much I am in the woods, more than anybody you've probably ever known. So being in their environment more, you're much more likely to, I think, stumble upon an encounter, of course. So it's pretty unbelievable. But we just watch these rocks shoot out of the, of this thick mat, of spruce needles, and just land right in front of us, right before our eyes, as we all stand there in awe. It was just incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. How far do you think the rocks were thrown?
I'd say they were thrown, let me think now, so probably about 20 to 30 yards, something like that. Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
50 feet
at
least.
Sure. Yeah, no person's throwing a football-sized boulder that far. That's for sure.
No, definitely not.
That's yeah. Oh my gosh, that is nerve-wracking. And so how did your dad and your uncle, take that at that point? I mean, what were their thoughts on the whole world of Bigfoot? Was it all a joke, and then suddenly it walked onto their doorstep at that point, or did they have any stories along those lines?
Yes, so my uncle was definitely a believer. He was big into TV shows and stuff like that.
Mm.
My dad was not. I mean, he spent the entire, his entire life in the woods. He's never encountered anything that he deemed necessarily unnatural in the nature of Bigfoot in the woods. Nothing like that. And again, all of us are big dudes. Every one of us is, well over 6 foot, over 200 pounds. Like, we're big guys. We're not scared of much, I mean, especially my dad and my uncle, 6'2" and 6'5" and probably 230 pounds. We're all in great shape and big guys. Not much scares us, especially in the woods, and especially not when we have guns. But interestingly enough, I remember, very vividly, while we were standing in that circle on that riverbank, I was the furthest away from the river. So I had a little bit of a wider view than anybody else did. And my uncle and my dad were closest to the river. And I remember watching the first rock splash next to them, and all of us turn. And then I remember watching them watch the second rock come and land, and seeing them look at each other. These brothers that are in their mid-40s, just have an overwhelming sense of fear over their face, and rip their rifles off their shoulders and say, "Look, this is serious now. Like, what the heck's going on?" Because you're talking about dudes that, New York City sergeant in the police department, again, and big guys. Nothing really scares them, and to watch them get scared like that and have that fear and terror instantly of the unknown, and have that and grab their rifles off their shoulders. This was serious, and for me, being at the time 16 years old, I said, this is real now. Like, something's going on. If they're getting scared, something's going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, the unknown, it's the scariest part. And you hear that so much with Bigfoot encounters, it's suddenly you just know something that you're not aware of is around. And, just like what you're saying, people, soldiers and hunters who've been in, grizzly country, they've been everywhere. Nothing has really fazed them. And then they have an encounter and they're just frozen with fear, because it is this weird unknown element that just creates just pure and utter fear. Absolutely terrifying. And the fact that these scenarios, you've been in them twice now, I can understand why you don't really see the need to leave Long Island to go hunting. And
Yeah.
you'll be a little cautious whenever you go. Now, also too, I was thinking, I mean, it would be, I mean, there's no way to know, but I would have to think, given what you were saying about Paul Smith's students, I mean, there's got to be so many more people who have experienced the same types of things, especially out there. Like, I know of a roadside crossing encounter on Route 30, which is Paul Smith is on. So that general area is just so nothing. It's nothingville, and it's not in the high peaks. It's not in the mountains. It's in what people call the foothills.
It's in the swamps and foothills and swamps.
It's
an
the
area
spot
where there's not, again, like you said, it's out of the high peaks. There isn't that attraction of hikers. There isn't that abundance of, people, going tree spotting or anything, or even hunting, for that matter. It isn't that area. This is just a desolate, almost, or I guess to us, it's a wasteland because there's just nothing there other than wilderness. But to these animals, it's probably the best habitat you could ever imagine.